Hi, welcome to some ideas using 2.5-inch strips with GourmetQuilter. We're having a lot of fun making all sorts of different projects where we're starting out with some 2.5-inch strips. We use the occasional other bits and pieces, but it's mostly strips. So we're doing 20 different ideas altogether, and this is idea number 15. So we've had a lot of fun already, 14 times fun. So if you've already signed up on GourmetQuilter.com for the pattern, you will receive a pattern to download and print that looks something like this. And other than that, I'm here to show you what all the words mean, because sometimes we like to see it too. So what we're going to make this time is just a couple of small things, some coasters. So we're nearly all tea, coffee or some sort of drinkers of something, and we need something to put our drink onto to protect the table or whatever it is, and these are quite washable. The other thing is, of course, when we're using a whole lot of 2.5-inch strips for other projects, we often have small bits left over. So it was as much as that to use up some of our little bits and pieces as anything. So what we need to do, and I can just pop these up here for the moment. So I'm just suggesting just simple, a little 4-patch and just 2 strips, and then we're just doing this self-binding backing type of thing on the back. So I thought that was quite a neat way to do things. So, and the pattern gives you all the measurements and everything. So we need a square for the backing and binding all in one, and we need to make some markings on the square just to make it all easier for ourselves. So what we need to do is because we're going to have a binding effectively slightly larger than we would normally have when we just make a binding, because I thought it looked nice. So we just need to come in and we need to draw a finished size square inside there. So I'm using my ruler to line up here so that I can draw, and I've just got a soapstone marker because I'm on a dark busy fabric. I wasn't sure what was going to work, but this soapstone marker works quite well. So I just need to draw all 4 sides of the size square, and we can do it by measuring how far in that is from the edge rather than trying to set a square and making sure it's in the middle. If we just measure the 4 sides in, because we know how big the squares are, then we can do that. So we just want all 4 sides. And the other thing we want is a full diagonal mark from, well, pretty much point to point. It mostly needs to be in this middle area, but it can go all the way. So if we put the ruler on so that it's point to point and draw a line, that works really well. And then we're going to do a little bit of cutting, because we need these diagonal lines here. So I'm on the wrong side of the fabric, I should have said that earlier. We need the lines to help us line up our ruler, because we're going to trim off these 4 corners now. So on this diagonal line here and on my ruler, I'm going to line up one of these lines that goes across, and on here I've got a 1/4 inch in mark, and I want that to go through the corner where everything kind of meets in that corner there, so that we cut 1/4 inch away. Here's my corner. I want to cut 1/4 inch or so away. So if I can line up a line here with that diagonal line, line up my 1/4 inch mark right through there, then I can cut a 1/4 inch away from that little meeting point of all those lines, and we don't need that triangle anymore. And we need to do that on each of the 4 corners. So because we've got all these lines in place, it actually makes it quite easy. It might seem a little tedious to have to draw the lines, but we end up with a really good result by doing it this way. Well, I end up with a good result doing it this way. That's how I worked it all out to be. So I've allowed for the binding to be approximately 3/4 inch by the time it's finished, because I think that's kind of a nice size on something like that. We could have done it the 1/2 inch. It's a little bit fiddlier to sew, and I just thought that 3/4 inch looked pretty good. So that's our marking, that's our cutting. Now we have to do a little bit of pressing. So we've cut off these corners here, and this straight lines that we drew in the first place of our final size square, we just want to bring these little edges here into just, not quite onto that line, just to the outside of that line. And so this is our folded in little binding area. So I'm not quite touching that line, it's just a little bit less each time. So these are kind of fun to make. You could get into a little bit of a routine with these, and once we get this bit done we have to do a little bit of stitching, and you can chain piece the next little bit if you've got several that you're making. So there we've pressed that in to almost up to those lines that go around the side there. And now the other thing, next thing we want to do is we want to fold that, so on that diagonal line, but what we're trying to do is do a little tiny seam along here, so these raw edges should be even, and that should go through that diagonal line, that fold that we've drawn there. So we're going to stitch each of the 4 corners, so we'll do, and this is the bit I was saying, if you had several you could just line these up now and chain piece this little bit. It's just a little short seam, and we'll do the opposite one while we're folded in this direction. And then we want to open it out and fold it to do the other 2 corners. Quick and easy, these make great little gifts. They're perfect to just use because you can wash them. So this method can be used for other things, placemats and things like that. I probably wouldn't use it on a too large a project because it would be quite hard to get everything to sit absolutely right, but certainly smaller projects you can make this sort of self-binding backing quite easily for different things. So now we've got these 4, it's looking quite odd. We're trying to make it look like this. I should have probably shown you that one before. At the moment it's looking kind of cute but not particularly helpful. We need to just trim these, so we've just sewn, that's the little bit that we've just sewn. We just want to trim off the little corner point, just so that when we push those corners out it's not too much bulk in there. So don't cut your stitching, just the little point on the fabric in the seam allowance. And then we want to turn that out the right way. And I'm just going to use my trusty point turner here just to make sure they're sitting out as nicely as they can. And so that's looking pretty good now. So I've actually got 2 of those because I've gone ahead and already joined up my squares and my strips, and I've already placed them. They're just sitting on a square of batting. They're not stitched. They could be. If you wanted to quilt that, you could do that. I haven't. And now, so we've got this, which is going to be the same size as that, and this one also. So we want to pop these inside now. So now I've used a cotton batting, so it kind of wants to grip, so it's only half helpful, but it's good to have cotton in there in the longer term because it sits nice and flat, and it's really good when you've got to put cups and things on top. So just pushing those into the corners so that, and we'll just have to wiggle it around a little bit till it's sitting all nice and flat. And sometimes it is a little wiggle here and there. I just thought what a great idea for using up some real little bits and pieces. We've already done, in this series, we've done some placemats, we've done a table runner. You could make a whole set, would make a fabulous gift. It would just be nice on your own table. It doesn't have to be for somebody else to enjoy. So I'll get these both in while I'm here. So they're relatively plain, fun, simple little ideas, but so good to be able to use up little bits and pieces. And as we've been doing some other bits and pieces, I was getting a whole pile of little bits and pieces. So if you're making them too, you've probably also got a pile of little bits and pieces. So I'm going to press that now. So I'm pretty happy that that's all sitting okay. So when you press it, just make sure that this line is staying straight. It may want to sort of bow out a little bit, so just iron it straight. So go around each side and keep that nice and straight. And that will all just sit in there really nicely. And then once you've done all that, you can iron the whole thing and press it maybe from the back as well. And then we're just going to have to go around and stitch that. So I might as well just do this one while we're here as well. So that just fits really nicely in there once you push all that batting right out to the edge there. Because we don't want anything too lumpy if we're putting cups and things on. We need it to sit really as flat as possible, and cotton batting is certainly the flattest batting that I've come across. So now what we need to do is just stitch around inside there, just close to that fold. So I found it was the easiest way was to start at the corner and so I'm quite close to the fold. And just pivot at the corner and come all the way around. Now that has not taken too long to do. Often we want little gifts for housewarming, we want Christmas gifts, we want birthday gifts, we want gifts for ourselves. So I've just got that one to stitch. I can stitch that one later, but you get the idea of how that's working. How nice would it be to have a little set just wrapped up in a ribbon to give somebody as a gift. So I hope that's helpful. I thought just as an idea of using up some small pieces, that would be really neat. So these ones I've made all four with the same fabric, so they could be a set that way. And these ones here I've used the other sorts of fabrics, but I've made everything with a black and white type background or surround, so that they also have a uniformity and yet they're all different. So there's just some ideas. You might make them all different colours, all sorts of things. But that was a little coaster. That was idea number 15 with 2.5 inch strips, and I will see you with idea number 16.